And now, a very personal, very heartfelt, very message from very Robert Zoltan. So how did it all come to this? That I would be begging for change like a mime on the subway? Well, actually, it began soon after I started my company, Dream Tower Media, and got the vague idea to do this show called Literary Wonder and Adventure Show. I wasn't sure if I should proceed because doing a show sounded too much like work. Then I heard the voice in my head. It sounded suspiciously like Alec Guinness, and it said, "Do the show." Well, I did what anyone would do in that situation. I upped the dose of my meds and finished polishing the garden gnome. But an hour later, the voice came back. This time, the voice sounded suspiciously like my own, and it said, "Do the show." Well, I'd encountered this sort of thing before. It's called a thought, and I knew from experience that it was best to ignore all such thoughts, especially if they were coming to me in my own voice. Otherwise, I'd end up jumping through hoops and doing all sorts of crazy things, like getting a job. I went back to my crocheting. Then, just at twilight, when the sun was exhausted from trying to get humanity's attention, gave us the finger and fled the scene, I heard the voice again. This time it was higher pitched and seemed to be coming from my windowsill. I glanced over, and there was a raven, neither very large nor very small. Well, maybe a bit on the smaller side as ravens go, I think. Or maybe I'm thinking of a crow. Anyway, you get the idea. A raven, black, menacing. Well, not exactly menacing. Maybe more like cute in a menacing way. And you know the first thing he said? No, it wasn't "do the show." It was actually, "Brother, can you spare a dime?" Well, I was so surprised that I almost dropped my glass goblin. I told him I couldn't because I was flat broke. Then I asked him if he needed a job. After he stopped laughing, he said, "No, thanks." I told him that was great because I needed a sidekick, and since it didn't pay anything, technically he would not be working. He seemed dubious. But then I told him about the show. I don't know what I said because I hadn't decided what the show was at that point. In fact, I think I blacked out, because the next thing I knew I woke up passed out in the back of my Dodge Gremlin with the raven and 2 empty wine bottles. That was weird because I was sober. Those empty bottles had already been in the back seat. I'd never gotten around to taking them to the recycling to see if I could make a dime. That turned out to be a good thing, because if I had, then I would have given Edgar that dime when he asked for it, because I'm that kind of American, and he would have flown off and we wouldn't be here now. Which, come to think of it, might have been for the best. Well, no use getting angry at water that's already boiled. Anyway, the first thing he said when I woke up was, "Do the show!" And that's when I decided to do the show. Of course, I don't know where I would have hosted it, because my Dodge Gremlin wasn't big enough, and my landlord doesn't allow me to have parties. And gosh darn it, if I was going to do the show, it was going to be a party. Well, Edgar and I shared our life stories, and 10 minutes later, we walked around to the backyard to look at the stars. We heard this weird noise that sounded like this. And standing there in my backyard was an old stone tower, several stories high. Now, I had heard of this thing happening to other people, but trust me, when it happens to you, it's different. Edgar flew up to the window and spied inside. He said it looked empty. I tried the thick oak door, and it opened, quite noisily. I stepped inside, and Edgar flew over and landed on my shoulder. We were just starting to investigate the place when we heard that sound again. The next thing we knew, light was streaming from the window. We looked out and found that we were at the edge of a desert valley filled with ruins of an ancient city. There were 2 crescent moons in the sky. After an exclamation that I can't repeat here, since this is a family show, I said, "What on earth are we going to do now?" Edgar said, "I don't think we're on Earth." And I said, "Well, what are we going to do anyway?" And Edgar made a response that I felt at first was nonsensical. But later, I came to realize that it was exactly the right answer. He said, "Do the show!" So we did. And the Dream Tower transported us somewhere else. And we did another, and it jumped worlds again. We've been doing the show ever since, hopping from one fantastic world to another, with guests joining us along the way to make the journey more pleasant. And we'll keep doing the show as long as enough of you are along for the ride. For you see, the Dream Tower runs on belief. Belief in the magic of literary worlds come alive. Edgar and I are not enough. As long as enough of you are traveling with us, the Dream Tower will keep going. Without your belief, without your support, the Dream Tower will get stuck in one place and be just like any other stone tower. No wonder, no adventure. Don't let that happen. Join us in our journey. The world needs wonder. The world needs adventure. The world needs magic. And to create that, we need you. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.